Oh, let's move on to the next topic because this is incredible. We've talked about this before and I have been an advocate of the purchase of the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter when I was in uniform as an Air Force public affairs officer, when I worked on Parliament Hill, when I worked as a journalist for various media publications. I don't know how many columns I've written over the last 15 years about why the F-35 is the right fighter jet for Canada. And the primary reason is interoperability. That's what the United States flies. All branches of the U.S. military, United States Air Force, United States Navy, United States Marines are all flying the F-35. The Royal Air Force, another defense partner of ours, huge ally, what we do a lot of training with. The RAF is flying the F-35. The Australians are flying the F-35. We do a lot of work with the Australians. How do I know that? Well, I was a public affairs officer in the Canadian Armed Forces and the Air Force, and I know how much training we do with the United States, Great Britain, and Australia. Those are our key partners. They're all flying the F-35. We need to fly the same aircraft. And it's high time we got on with this. By the time we get delivery of these aircraft, they're going to be on the way to obsolescence, which is what always happens in the Canadian defense planning. So we can't accommodate two kinds of jet aircraft. We don't have the maintenance capacity for that. We can't maintain F-35s and Gripen jets purchased from Saab in Sweden. Let's listen to Melanie Jolie here.
That Saab is offering 10,000 jobs if you go with the Gripen, but at the same time, Lockheed Martin says thousands of jobs could be lost if we don't go with the F-35. How are you balancing that?
Well, what I've said is I don't believe that we've had enough jobs created and industrial benefits done out of the F-35 contract. I think it's not enough. I think Canadians expect more, and we should get more. So that's my first point. And second, when it comes to the Gripen, of course, we're really interested in seeing what can be done because there was an unsolicited bid that came up. 10,000 jobs is indeed a very interesting offer. So we have to look at what our military capabilities needs, and at the same time, what are the number of jobs created across the country. I know that Canadians want us to build more in Canada, build with Canadian jobs, and that's what I'm pushing.
Good evening.
I'll just stop it there for a second because you could create 10,000 jobs by asking people to dig a pit and fill it in again. What's the purpose of it? Even if it does create 10,000 jobs, are they going to be Canadian jobs or are they going to be exporting jobs from Sweden to come over here? How many of them are really going to be Canadian jobs? Of course, she never talks about that. And the thing is, you're going to produce a product that's not going to be usable by the Canadian Air Force or the Royal Canadian Air Force. It's not going to be the product they want or need. So this is absolute stupidity to suggest, well, we only make defense decisions based on industrial regional benefits, the IRBs as they're called. Of course, that's a factor. Every defense contract is political to some degree. It's unfortunate, but it is. A base closure is political to a huge degree. Notice when the Liberals are in, they never close bases in ridings that they have. They always close bases that the opposition parties had seats in every time. But procurement should be above politics. It should be about what the military needs. Well, let's listen to some more of this.
One of the largest defense contractors in Europe is making a play for a piece of this country's military market.
10,000 research and manufacturing jobs could land in Canada if Ottawa adds the Swedish fighter jet to its military fleet.
We, as Saab, we are prepared to do that technology transfer to Canada and support that build-up.
Canada faces a critical decision in its defense strategy, and the implications are being watched closely across the globe. Analysts in Washington, Ottawa, and Stockholm recognize that the next steps could reshape military planning, industrial production, and international partnerships for decades. Canada's fighter jet program has long been a central element of its defense planning, and the choices it makes now carry consequences far beyond national borders. Reports indicate that new developments from Sweden have introduced an unexpected factor into these discussions, one that could influence not only Canada's military capabilities, but also its industrial landscape, technology transfer, and economic future. Saab, the Swedish manufacturer of the Gripen fighter jet, has confirmed ongoing discussions with Ottawa regarding the potential production of these aircraft in Canada. Saab President and CEO Mikael Johansson explained in a recent interview that the company is prepared to provide technology transfer, support upgrades, and collaborate directly with major Canadian firms. These companies include Bombardier and CAE, both headquartered in Montreal, as well as Nova Scotia-based IMP Aerospace and Defense. Johansson indicated that production could take place either in a newly built facility or within a converted existing plant, with the first Canadian-made Gripen potentially ready within 3 to 5 years. The scale of this proposal is significant. Johansson confirmed that if Canada moves forward with this plan, it could create approximately 10,000 manufacturing and research jobs across the country. These positions would cover aerospace engineering, technology development, and high-level production roles connected directly to the Gripen program. This is not a minor adjustment. It represents a substantial industrial expansion that could influence Canada's domestic economy for decades.
All right. The guys can't seem to pronounce things very well. It's Gripen and it's Bombardier. Obviously, this reporter does not have a lot of background in aerospace. But it doesn't matter, as I said. We don't have an Air Force that's large enough to accommodate 2 fighter jets. Every fighter jet has to be maintained. This is a huge part of flying. Every time that jet lands, it's maintained so it can fly again. It's checked out. Air Force maintainers, the ground crew, in other words, the ones who have to keep the aircraft flying for the pilots. It's a very specialized trade. So they're saying we're going to have ground crew trained on the Gripen and ground crew trained on the F-35, because we will be getting some F-35s. And those Gripens, of course, won't be able to interact with our United States allies. They won't be able to interact with our Royal Air Force and Royal Australian Air Force allies. And NORAD membership could be in jeopardy. The ambassador to Canada, the U.S. ambassador to Canada, has already said this. I put a request in to have him on the show next week. We want to talk about this. In the meantime, I'll remind you of what retired Colonel Doug McGregor, who was probably the most thoughtful defense analyst out there, said about the consequences of tweaking the nose of President Donald Trump by saying, we're going to buy Swedish jets, which, by the way, are probably just great for Sweden and some European countries, but totally inappropriate for Canada. But here's Doug McGregor explaining why, if you want to see Donald Trump furious, if you really want to see Donald Trump come down on Canada, this decision could do it.
Talk a little bit about your prime minister, who's made the decision to obviously invest in equipment and technology produced in Europe versus what we produce. And that's a sore point. That's a direct barb at Trump. Howard Lutnick, who is one of the key figures in the administration, a couple of weeks ago was meeting with some business leaders from India. And one of the leaders from India said, Mr. Lutnick, what can we do that would make you happy about us and pleased with us? And his answer was, well, we'd be happy if you bought more of our military equipment instead of Russia's. Well, if you're an Indian right now and you have a long-term relationship with Russia that goes back decades, virtually to the founding of the Indian state, and you live in very close proximity to Russia, why would you invest in military equipment for the United States when you have supply chains that have to reach, thousands of miles back to America? It's not going to happen. But I thought what was important about the exchange was Lutnick's insistence that was important. Now, this is a real sore point with Donald Trump, because right now, when you look at our economy, what do we produce? Well, we produce oil and natural gas. We do have some mineral deposits, but primarily oil and natural gas. We also have a hell of a lot of coal, which we are not making full use of, that we can produce and ship overseas. The other thing that we produce, of course, are crops. We still are an agricultural power. We haven't managed it as well as we should, and we haven't capitalized on it the way we should, in my judgment, but we are still an agricultural power. But what do we manufacture? What do we build? Not much. As a result, we tend to build a lot of military equipment and stuff. And that is important to President Trump because it maintains assembly lines, it keeps them open. So if you really want to aggravate President Trump and you will really want to harm him in some way, you do exactly what your prime minister has done and say, fine, we're not going to use any of your equipment. We're going to use whatever is built in Europe. So that's the easy answer to the question about Canada right now and the attitude towards Trump.
That, of course, was part of an interview that I conducted with Colonel McGregor a couple of months back, maybe 2.5 months back. And he's going to be on the show again. I can promise you that, because I really admire his analysis. I admire him as a man. He's courageous in terms of saying things that all of the other paid and bought and paid for generals on Fox News, on CNN, on MSNBC won't say. They lie to you. They tell you what either the administration wants you to hear or what the media outlet wants you to hear. And it's all about the military industrial establishment for those people. For Colonel McGregor, Doug McGregor, it's about truth. It's about what's really, really happening. So before I get to this incredible video from Surrey and a phone call to the RCMP to do something